Hello, welcome back to the Trickway again. Spoiler alert: we're recording last episode and this episode back to back. My name is Trev, as always, and that's Great Gamer showing off his Prodigy sign, which is partly cut off. That's a shame.
Yes, but
I'm just going to stick with the Defiant,
can't be perfect.
although I may get a Voyager A one for the future. You never know. So this time, like I said last time, but we're doing either two or three episodes per review. It just depends on if we touch. There's two or three parters episodes throughout this season, and it just depends on what we lie on. Episodes 3, 4, and 5 are singular episodes, so we just put them into the one review then, so that we're not bamboozling you guys too much with this. Before we kick off, though, as always, if you want to talk Star Trek to us, or gaming, or just entertainment in general, please come across to our Discord, which is discord.gg/Extreme Gaming Podcast. Or if you can't be bothered doing that, just Google search Extreme Gaming Podcast and you'll find us. And you can come in and there's a Star Trek room in there. You can chat all things Star Trek with us. And every Thursday we also have a gaming podcast as well. Gray and I do 8 p.m. GMT, which is available on all available good podcasting platforms. And lastly, but not leastly, there's a room there as well for Gray here. We do Gray's Green Room, which is just entertainment based. There's a lot of whatever's happening that's hot in Hollywood, film and cinema at the time. Whatever's happening with the streaming services, we're usually all over that. So an episode will be coming for that later on this month at some point. But we'll kick off with episodes 3, 4, and 5 of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, Episode 3. The first one is called Who Saves the Saviors? Now, of all of these three episodes, this one I probably disliked the most. Not to say I hated it, great, I didn't. You could tell my notes are just shorter because there wasn't as much meaningful stuff to talk about in this one, but we'll kind of go through what's happened, what we think, and then kind of blend these three together a little bit. Of course, we pick off from the last episode and the little boo-boo of accidentally launching Infinity. Now, I'm not sure why this happens, but unless I miss something, the Infinity, when it goes through the wormhole, does actually crash land. I'm trying to figure out why it crash land because it was launched into the wormhole. I'm assuming it wasn't as compatible with the wormhole as they thought it was because it crash lands on the planet again. Was I missing something great? Did it hit something? I don't think it did.
I don't remember them saying anything about it. I mean, I guess it was the maiden voyage, and they didn't know completely how this was going to work. So I suppose those things could happen. But I did kind of expect it to kind of like land as opposed to crashing. But I guess that had to further the story as we get into it. You know, that it was necessary to show that it was broken and
That's true.
they had to do stuff.
That is very true, actually.
But yeah, I kind of was hoping. I thought it was going to do like a light touchdown and boom, that's it. But whatever.
That would be too easy. It does crash land a little bit. Everyone's kind of okay for the most part. They come out the ship, and what's the first thing they see? They see the protostar, because it's in the past. So they see the protostar sitting there, getting ready to do its thing. Nice little touch that, because I do like the protostar. I did like that little ship, and it was nice to see it again, even though it's in the past. The crew are captured. The kids are captured. I think they were actually caught a bit too easy, but I mean, I guess they are kids, whatever. Now, the important key thing here is that they allude to the protostar has to be launched. If the protostar's not launched, it doesn't get to its destination. The kids don't find it, and everything doesn't happen the way it's supposed to happen, and something will break and timey-wimey again, basically.
People might not exist anymore, etc.
Oh yeah, and we see that a little bit as we go on for this episode as well. They're taken to jail. The kids are taken to jail. It's a bit of an old-fashioned, like tribe-style bloody jail cell, which was amusing. And who's in there but Chakotay? He has been captured along with his first officer, who's basically a big giant bird. I'm not shitting you.
Yep.
Now, this is a
humanoid bird thing.
This is a not nitpick of mine, Gray, and I want your opinion if you agree or disagree. His first officer's called Adric, which, if you've ever watched Doctor Who, the old Doctor Who, that was one of Doctor Who's sidekicks, actually, Adric.
Oh, really?
Yeah, back in the old Doctor Who. And my nitpick is Star Trek has got many alien life forms in it, right? Safe to say. Mm-hmm. And they all look pretty different. For the most part, although not completely, they're humanoid, which makes sense. Yeah. And there's many shapes and forms within the humanoid form. The odd exception is in there. Now, when you see this bird, I think that's bullshit. I'm sorry. That's even too. I know it's a kid show. That's a bit too far fetched now, because the reason being, when I see something like that, I think of Star Wars, not Star Trek. Star Wars does it a bit more elaborate, a bit more bonkers with their aliens in terms of what they look like. A lot of them are not humanoid looking. So when I see this bird, I'm thinking, again, I know it's a kid's show, people come back and tell me that, Grail come back and tell me that, but it's still Star Trek, it's still got to make sense, it's still got to be canon. How does a bird that I assume millions of years ago flew and looked more like a bird evolve into a fucking humanoid that looks like a bird? What? It bothered me, man. It bothered me.
I remember the reason why, going all the way back to TOS, the original used aliens that were humanoid-like was one simple reason, and that was cost. There was no way they could sit there and go like, well, there could be, aliens with 4 legs and blah blah blah. That's possible. But they couldn't do it, so they just kind of like went with the usual. I mean, look at all the sci-fi movies back when, right? Everything was pretty much humanoid, generally speaking, unless it was a blob-looking thing or whatever, and because that was easy to do. Hey, let's put a blob. So so I kind of get it. Yeah, and of course in animation you can get away with. Remember the Star Trek the animated series going back to '73 had some rather bizarre-looking aliens on that ship and on the bridge too. I think there was a bird creature too then, if I remember. It's been a while. I mean, I haven't seen.
It's been a while. Yeah,
many years. But as far as I mean, we don't know. There's infinite different varieties of anything that can happen. I mean, there's a hypothesis going on that if the asteroid hadn't destroyed all dinosaurs, that eventually the dinosaurs would have evolved into something probably more intelligent in somewhere along the line. And since a decent number of dinosaurs became birds, it's not too far-fetched. But I get what you mean, because when you're looking at it, all you can think of is a parrot, and they're gonna have issues when that officer molts and the feathers go everywhere. So you can just see when he's on the bridge.
When we get to later episodes, there's some puns about the first officer, which are pretty amusing, to be fair. Just it bothered me that, but whatever. It's not going to ruin it for me, of course not.
You gotta have some high quality birdseed around. I mean, that'll work.
That will work, yeah. Now the kids can't allude to Chakotay that they are Starfleet, that they know who Chakotay is, and blah blah blah, and they're looking a bit suspect, but they don't want to pollute the timeline, so they have to just like, Starfleet, what's that? They have to, even though they keep making a couple of muck-ups and mistakes as we go along, but he's a bit gullible, Chakotay. You comment here, Gray, that you think he falls for it a bit too easy, but you let it slide, I guess. Maybe
if you really watch the way they write the show, you see quite obvious when the teenage writing comes in. And that was part of it. They didn't want to get too deep because they figured they're going to lose that audience if you start making other reasons for things. So they just kind of skirted it and kind of quickly got to the point, okay, well, all right, I'm going to accept all that garbage you're saying. Otherwise, if it was written for more adult audience, we wouldn't go with that at all. We would be knocking that, very heavily. So you always got to suspend a little bit when you're watching Prodigy that, okay, teenagers, they're just gonna go with it, whereas we don't go with it. We still should mention it like we just
Yeah,
did,
that's right. That's right.
but we have to kind of like step back a second, because if we were going to use that as a review point, then we would be knocking a point or two off every episode.
Well, we've done that
You
in the
know.
past. See, when there's been things like this in other Star Trek shows, we have like knocked points off it
Yeah.
or been
Yeah,
a bit
but
more
like you
pissed off.
said, if they flat out were breaking canon to it was kind of like, oh, this is really dumb, then it's different.
They've,
Then you're talking about really,
they've not
doing
broken
something.
canon yet. Yet.
Right, and I don't suspect they're going to, because they generally speak. I mean, they generally, make the episodes to keep all that in line, and they do a really good job. I mean, I mean, so we can't really knock it per
Yeah.
se. But yeah, it was a little too easy for me. But then I kind of like, all right, teenager writing, okay, and then you just kind of move on.
We'll let it slide. Yeah, we back in the. Actually, is it the past now? Because they went. This is the thing with timey wimey. It
No,
confuses the hell out of me.
anytime you see Gwen, anytime you see Gwen in this instance, it would be the. Yeah, I get confused too after a while.
Future.
It would be that, well, no, because she's getting to her people before they became really bad.
But they went. The kids went through the wormhole and they went back in time. But she's not there with them.
Right. Yes. It really is confusing.
It
It gets
is.
to the timey-wimey, like you said. It's like, oh.
Well, back with Gwen anyway, whenever the hell she is. No, she
Yeah.
isn't Solemn.
Well, it gets more confusing later, which we won't
Oh,
say
it does.
right now. So.
It does. It does. The only way to Gwen's trying to basically because she arrives to her people, like basically the Kinso, the leaders, if you want, with her father, and her father's trying to plead the case. She is who she says she is. She is my daughter. She proves it. Blah blah blah. But there's only one way to actually resolve this through, and it was her father that suggests this one. There's a ritual kind of combat sequence fight, if you like, between the two that will. I mean, how many bloody times do we see the old ritual fight to the death thing to sort things out? Why not?
Yeah.
And it's between Gwen and Essentia. And this Essentia really has a grudge against against Gwen. She really, really has a bee in her bonnet, man. She really doesn't like her. I mean, I've seen season 1. I still don't fully understand why she hates her as much as she does, but she does.
I think she sees her as competition for
Majorly.
her. Yeah, right. I kind of like, you send something to somebody that might be competitive to your job, and you get freaked out about it. At least that's the way it seems to be to me.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. This fight is on what I can only describe as a platform that slowly lowers into the ground, like pretty deep into the ground, with all these kind of murals and pictures and stuff on the wall. It looks actually pretty. It was a nice scene. It looked pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it looked good.
And it's so they can't escape it easily, but they will have to literally fight to the death down there. And none of them have weapons. I think Essentia has her.
They start out with some, but then
They start out with their
as they're
heirlooms.
battling. They kind of.
Yeah.
Well, they started throwing the weapons, and we get stuck in the ground, and they were trying to avoid each other grabbing them. So
Yeah. Pretty
but then
nasty fight.
because they can, but because they can manipulate the whatever that is, the metal or weapons. You saw that, but both of them, well, especially Essentia, she seemed to have more control over it. So she was able to call on it to be able to create different weapons that she could throw at Gwen. Gwen was fending off a lot of that with a shield that she made. But I don't think she quite grasped the ability to throw that many weapons at a time as easily, I guess. But it was pretty cool because they were trying to figure out ways that they could manipulate what they have to throw at each other or to do whatever damage they could.
Yeah.
It was kind of neat. It was a neat fight.
It was a good fight between the two of them. Back with the kids who are stuck in kid jail with Chakotay and the first officer. Jankum, they literally are able to escape thanks to Jankum. He uses the pad. I think it was the Starfleet pad actually. They have a pad on them which I don't recall how they get it, but Jankum's genius.
Oh, I think Chakotay or his
No, he hid it.
bird,
He hid it.
right, his Birdman or hit it.
His bird
I
man.
don't know what
His bird
I
man.
don't know.
Oh
But
god.
in either case, they were able to get it. But I like how they were looking at Jankum going like, right, like you're not gonna know how to get out of here. We've already been through this. And Jankum's always pretty confident. He just goes, yeah, well,
It's
well,
not
we'll
Birdman,
take-"
it's Adric. Adreek.
yeah,
Adric.
Adric the Birdman, got it.
And it's a
It's kind of like the cat on the, on the
yeah.
lower decks, Doctor Cat.
And it's Essentia. What were you calling her, man?
Yes,
Essentia or something, man. What the?
Essentia, yeah.
Essentia. I know
Close
that because
enough.
I listened. I paid attention. But yeah, anyway, so Jankum, being the genius that he is literally able to break them out using the pad, which is, they get the guys.
Yeah, but wait now. But how does he do it? I thought that was a good little twist. They took his mechanical hand off, and then all of a sudden he figured out a way to tell his hand to do stuff, and so the hand actually goes around doing what Jankum tells it the hand to do, and the hand breaks him out. I thought that was pretty smart because I totally forgot that they took that
By
hand
doing
thing
what?
off of him.
By doing what? So the hand literally presses the
Yeah.
panel, which releases the force field to let them out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that whole thing was pretty smart. I was trying to think how they're gonna get out of this one, and then I didn't even think about the hand,
And
at all. And I was going,
the whole
okay.
time, this little robot thing's trying to catch the hand, one of the
Yeah.
security droid things, if you like, and then they are released. Jankum comes back, the hand flies back to him, back onto his arm, and then he just literally, I was going to say knocks the droid out, but actually does the droid in. And Jankum saves the day again. Legend that he is. Now, we talked before about Jankum being a walking pun machine because he was making a few puns about birds, basically, right? And he kept having to apologise to Adric because he's like, no, sorry, that wasn't cool of me, and I'm trying to do better.
Sorry.
Slip of the tongue. And then he said, I laughed out loud at this one here. I had to rewind it a couple of times. He went, right, guys, time to fly the coop. And he's like, damn, sorry. But then Chakotay goes, come on, man, you got to admit, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to say that, Chakotay, so that was kind of funny.
Oh, Chakotay's got a
right
sense of
into it.
humour. He's got a sense of humour, I guess. It's fine. Back at that fight between Gwen and Essentia, Gwen is getting her arse handed to her. She's not as experienced in the combat in her culture because of how she came about. So she thinks, screw this, instead of trying to win, I'm just escape instead. And she uses all those little weapon pieces that were thrown into her or thrown at her to actually use them as vaulting points, if you like, or climbing points to actually get up this massive tunnel that they're stuck in.
Just parkouring up them.
Parkour, well, that's parkour and a half. I don't even think that's parkour. That's full on bloody climbing. That is, and which I thought was genius. She's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Then back with the crew, they have to make things play out the way they did in season 1. So the plan is Chakotay and Adric have got to get to the protostar and launch it unmanned, right? The only way to do that is to make a distraction so that Chakotay and Adric can do this. And they're all saying, should we do this? And Dal's like, well, who's to say we didn't do it first time around? Again, more timey-wimey stuff to make your head so.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, good point. Okay, let's cause this distraction. Let these guys get to the ship. But there's a bit of a boo-boo. Of course there is. There's always going to be a bit of a boo-boo. It's never going to be straightforward. Instead of launching it unmanned, the two of them, Chakotay and Adric, get on and pilot the ship into the wormhole. We're like, oh shit. And I think it's because Adric does get shot, you see that, but then there was a random pulse rifle on the floor beside him, which Chakotay picks up.
Yeah.
The Dal dropped that side because they're asking, how did it get there? And he's like, damn, he realised it was him. If that weapon hadn't been there, they probably would have went to the original plan, because Chakotay didn't have a weapon to fight back, so he's like, let's launch a ship, get it away quickly. But now he has a weapon to fight back and cover his retreat to get onto the ship and launch it into the wormhole. So they're just like, oh, damn, things are not going as seemed. And then the ongoing fight between Gwen and Essentia. This was, I don't know if I've seen this coming, actually. I thought Gwen would win. She doesn't escape. She doesn't quite escape. She gets close to it. She doesn't escape the ritual, but falls down to the bottom as Essentia climbs out. And the shock and horror of her father as Essentia comes out and Gwen doesn't. She falls what looks like to her doom, but as she gets near the bottom, one of those, I don't know how you describe it, Ray, one of those like heirlooms that they have, but like a giant version, seems to like reach up and grab her before she falls. I think this is the mysterious character that we see in episodes 4 and 5 that, or we are alluded to, but we don't know enough about it. Was that your thought on how she was saved at the end?
I either thought it was that or
Her father.
Well, could be, but I was thinking more like it was a reaction because she knew she was falling, and the last thing she could think of is, I'll try to think of telling the material to come and save me.
Yeah.
Without really knowing if it's going to work or not, and
True.
it just happened to work. Luckily. At this point too, she was phasing in and out because we saw her a couple times where she went to reach to grab the metal or whatever she was climbing up, and all of a sudden her hand goes right through it, and stuff, and so
That's
like
true.
whoop, and then so she was like constantly phasing in and out too. That could have been part of it.
Yeah.
Because of the fact she wasn't all there.
Well, because the Protostar was launched manned rather than
Right.
unmanned. Yeah, it's changing the timeline literally. So yeah, it looks like she's not hurt, but she's because she's phasing in at a time, she's not in the best of places. And then the episode kind of finishes. But I had a little side note here, Gray, that is a bugbear of mine. I don't care if it's a kid show, just calling it as it is right now. I find it massively disrespectful and not in Starfleet canon at all that the kids constantly keep calling Vice Admiral Janeway. They keep calling her Janeway all the time. No, not even a full officer, like a full cadet, would dare call anyone of rank by their surname ever. I think it's disrespectful. You can agree with it, but you think it's like them just the equivalent of mum instead? I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, remember they were so used to dealing with the holodeck, the holo version, and so they always would call her Janeway because it was a holo. So they just went Janeway, Janeway, Janeway. So I think part of it is because they were used to it, but I don't excuse it because at that point, since they, have already entered the academy and they were learning, I would think that would drop off and they would call her Admiral or Captain or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't use the fact that they used to call her Janeway when it was a holo as an excuse. Now you're talking about the real person. But it was almost kind of like they're saying Janeway as if it was their mom or something because, again, they're teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like it's a mom kind of thing. Oh, Janeway, please.
Janeway
Can we do that?
she shouldn't let it slide. She should be like, it's Admiral to you kids. Something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
That will sort that.
I was actually waiting for her to do that. I figured it was going to happen, but then it didn't. And she just kind of like.
That's the thing about Janeway in this, right? Again, I know it's a kid show, but she's too lax and too chilled for me.
Yeah.
That's not Janeway. Janeway was a bit more hardcore. She was a bit more like a female version of Picard in a way. Like she's staunch. Like you don't mess with her. She'll say it how it is, and she will slap you down if you need it. But yeah, no, just it was a bugbear in mind. It doesn't break anything. It's just something I remembered, and I thought I would add in at the end.
Yeah,
Graham,
no, I agree.
what did you give this episode out of 10? Like, what's your thoughts?
I went with 8 out of 10 because I still really enjoyed it, even though there was some things in it that were relatively simplistic. Again, I know it sounds like we're always saying this, but part of that, not a total excuse, but some of that is the teenage writing kind of thing again. They have to kind of make some things simplistic because they can't they're straddling a fine line, writing for the adult and the kid at the same time. But when you go too far into the adult side, the kids are going to be like, you're going to lose them, and they can't lose the kid audience. That's what it's made for. So we're always reminded of that to some extent, anyway. But
Yeah.
despite the fact that it was a little simplistic, I thought there was lots of great moments, and it's the show is compelling enough that you want to watch the next episode. So even though you and I are not purposely going ahead, I really wanted to go ahead, and that's a sign of a good show. If you really want to go ahead, then that's definitely a sign of a good show. If you're not, and you're just kind of like, if I go ahead, I go ahead. I don't care.
Sure.
It's not grasping you, but this one does. So that's a good thing.
I'm surprised that you gave it 8 out of 10 when you describe it as being a bit simplistic sometimes. I thought you were very generous with your score. I was a little bit less. I went 7 out of 10, kind of for some of the same reasons as you suggested. This episode was a bit more simplistic. There are good things in it, of course there are, but my notes alone were shorter than usual, which kind of says it all. There wasn't as much to talk about, but some good scenes. So 7 out of 10 is not bad score. That just means it's very decent, Couple of things weren't making a hell of a lot of sense to me, some nitpicks, but nice to see Chakotay again. And I wasn't a massive fan of the fight. The fight scene looked cool, but I didn't like the outcome of it as well. I thought that was a bit pants. So we'll kick on. After that was, of course, we've got like 3 singular episodes in a row, no 2 or 3-parters yet. Again, season 2, episode 4, called Temporal Mechanics 101. So the title is important here because it comes up more than once. It's pretty amusing, I won't lie. Now, as we touched on before, it seems that the timeline has been changed somehow by the Protostar being launch piloted. Kind of makes sense, that's the way it goes. The Infinity ship, the console, this is the thing, right? One of the consoles inside Infinity is giving the crew a message saying, save Gwen. No clue who it's from, but we don't think it's Voyager at this stage. See, at this stage, Greg, did you have any ideas or, where this message may have came from?
No, I didn't know what was going on exactly. I was going along with it, but I couldn't think of who it could have been. But when you get to the timey-wimey thing like we talk about, you tend to get a little confused. Although I did, as the episode went on, I started thinking like, well, could it be X? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And so then I was happy to see that I was right, but I wasn't sure. But it started to kind of lay out itself to the fact that it's got to be this guy or this person.
Yeah. It's very mysterious, but I'm guessing that was the point. Back to Gwen, and as Gray mentioned kind of at the end of the last episode there, that something's not quite right with her. It's part of the reason she kind of fell to her doom, that she was kind of phasing in and out. I didn't know it was phasing in and out of her timeline at the time that was actually the case. But that is the situation where she is phasing in and out of time. And I'm thinking maybe she might actually even disappear, Gray, from that current timeline, at least for a little bit.
What I was thinking.
Yeah, because it's the whole timey-wimey bloody Back to the Future thing. It really is. It gets a little bit confusing. The crew, the kids, then this was kind of cool here. The kids they go to the exact same location as where Gwen is, but 52 years in the future, or their present, I guess. But there is a big time difference, of course, of 52 years. And I like this little bit, Greg, because there's they can't see or hear her properly, but they hear little echoes of her voice a little bit, because as she's going in and out of time,
they sense she's there, but they don't understand what's going on.
She's there, but she's not there. So I liked how they portrayed that a little bit. That was actually kind of cool. Yeah. They kind of think they hear her, but they're not really sure. And their plan literally is to build a time machine, right? No pressure. Like, no pressure. Just build a time machine, easy peasy. Let's speak to Doc Brown. Let's speak to the Doctor, Doctor Who, Doctor. See if we can whip up a TARDIS of their own. And I'm not going to pretend to know what was really going on with this whole bit because it hurt my head again. But the ship, Greg mentioned this before, the ship that they're in looks... I mentioned this at some point later on, I think. The ship that they're on looks like one of the hovercraft vehicles from The Matrix. I believe the main one was called the Nebuchadnezzar. Those kind of floating things with the pads around them, it kind of looked like a bit like that, especially when Jankum starts souping it up because it can't fly at this stage. So you look at it, but it also looks a little bit like a DeLorean with the things sticking out of it. So purposely, I think they've done this on how they want to make it seem like a time vehicle, because that's essentially what it ends up becoming. And they are able to find a brief way to get a message to Voyager. Voyager at the time can't really talk to the kids, but it sends out like a probe that's beefed up with shields long enough to get into the wormhole to make a quick message. As Dal makes contact with Voyager again. I love the line from the Doctor. He's back again. What was his line, Greg? Do you want to tell the people what his line was here?
I'm a doctor, not an exorcist. I know they're searching in the writing to come up with these things they can throw out. That's funny.
I love it. Yeah, the Doctor mentions this at one point when he's on Voyager. Now, I do like the little shout out to our very own Commander Worf, or I guess he's Captain in the future, but at this point he's still Commander. In the TNG episode where he jumps between quantum realms, they mention this as their inspiration for how to save the kids, and hence why they make the modifications to the ship that they do. I thought this was a bit batshit crazy, but I'll go with it. They're going to basically steal some energy from the wormhole to achieve this, like a lightning rod. Pull some of this energy down because it is a time wormhole. Effectively, it's not a wormhole. You liked this little nod, this little link to TNG, Gray?
I like any time when they reference something to what we've seen and know. But I think it served two purposes. One, it was kind of cool to mention Worf and TNG, but they also gave you an explanation of why they're going to be able to do this by referencing that episode. So they really didn't have to explain anything, even though normally
go and watch the episode if you want to know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they did that on purpose because an animated show, half-hour episode,
kids,
it would have taken too long to explain that or go right over teenagers' heads, and stuff. But they threw it in there because they wanted, and this is what you and I have always said. If you drop a line here and there, it makes sense. So to the more adult viewers like us, when they drop that in, now all of a sudden we click on it and we go like, okay.
Yeah.
So, they didn't have to do that. They could have just whatever, but
True.
they did. And so now they gave you, it's almost like throwing a bone to the older crowd going like, look, it's crazy, but here, this is something. So they did their work and they did their research. So, hey, hats off to them.
Yeah, I like it. You say it's aimed at teenagers. I think it's at best aimed at young teenagers, if not younger, mate. I might even say like 8, 9, 10 up is the kind of age range for it. It just happens to be that it's teenagers on the show as characters. But
yeah, I mean, I guess young teenagers as opposed to maybe not so much 18, 19, 17. But when you're starting to go below 17, for sure. Because that was the whole audience to begin with. But the cool thing, like I said, is that there's enough good stuff in it that it appeals to all ages, which is, again, is not easy to do when you're a writer.
No, it's not.
But they did it. So
they did.
I'm happy.
Great, we finally get to see that Temporal Mechanics 101 video. I had a lull at that. That was amusing to watch that. That was just...
It almost reminded me of the videos in oh god, in the other show,
Star Trek show.
No, 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 not Star Trek at all. I can't think of it now.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay, that's not a bad analogy, right there. So it was kind of like just kind of a goofy kind of whatever, and well, you should know this. I guess the funny thing was how they were basically explaining how you could do certain things, and
Yeah.
almost kind of like a blueprint to what they had to do or how they had to build the time machine. And as you see Dahl going through it and he's reading it, you see chapter 1, then all of a sudden you see chapter 5, then all of a sudden you see
And
chapter
he skips through it
8
at one
and
point.
15.
You remember him
Yeah,
skipping a
yeah, he was
chapter or
skipping
two?
on some of it, but then he finally got to like at chapter 15 or whatever. Now, of course, if you want to stretch it, you're sitting there going like, well, how did he read all that in enough time to build
Nah, I'm not going to
the
be that
time machine?
pernickety.
Exactly. So we just kind of glossed over that one, but it was pretty funny. I like how they did that. It was cute.
Yeah, like Grace says, we're talking about the different methods of time travel. And of course, they talk about the classic slingshot around the sun, which is my number one Star Trek way to go back in time. Although it's not the most accurate, of course. The other one is you've got to befriend a Q,
Yeah,
which I
that was
like.
good.
That was good, man. That
Like,
was smart.
hey, Q, can you do this for us? Mm.
And then, of course, they talk about the method that they do in this episode, which I've never seen before. This is a more unique version of doing it. To be fair, what did you put here, Greg? You know, the ship in the video is the original
Okay.
Enterprise. Yeah, yeah.
Because
Well,
when they started talking about the slingshot effect, that was done for the very first time in TOS, and in the video they show a little caricature of the Enterprise going around the sun on the slingshot, kind of thing.
do
I
you
was
see
like,
that in TOS? I thought the first time they done a proper slingshot was Star Trek 4.
no, 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 they did in TOS.
But
They
the
did
special effects are not there then, so it's harder to show it, isn't it?
Oh, of course, of course. But they did a good job. And remember, back then they limited on special effects, and we all thought it was great. Nowadays, it's like old. But except if y'all didn't already know this, they remastered the entire TOS, and it looks much better, including the effects and stuff. But anyway, that was the first time where Spock went like, well, theoretically, if we head to the sun at high speed, it'll whip us into around the back end of the sun, and we get shot out even faster, and we can go, all this stuff. And we're all going like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And then you see I think it was in the episode Yesterday's Enterprise. No, not Yesterday's Enterprise, but it was the one where they went back to the '60s.
Oh yeah.
And the guy that flew the jet that got interfered with, and they brought him aboard the ship. They had to figure out a way that they could get him back and keep the timeline correct. So this is why they did the slingshot effect and I kind of like that episode because they were actually traveling through time, knowing that they couldn't stop. They had to take the straight shot, and in so doing, they had to figure out how and when to beam back the people that ended up getting beamed up to the ship at the exact moment, so they wouldn't remember anything.
Wow.
And so you see them just change, and it was really a cool writing back then and how they did that. It's a good episode to watch. But anyway.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That brings. I mean, like I've said, a lot of these episodes at points through the years, but that one rings a bell. That'll have to be on the watch list. To be fair, I love the remastered version, especially. And I must admit that. Yeah, I will put that in the watch list actually because that kind of stuff fascinates me really.
I'll get the episode name for you. Don't worry.
It's not the most accurate way to time travel written off. I will say that much. But
look, if we wanted to be really nitpicky, I guess. I mean, the whole idea of introducing time travel the way they did has gotten quite. I don't know how you explain it, but it's quite. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's all over the place now, and so they had to come up with ways to explain why you just can't simply just jump on a time machine, build one, and screw everything up. And they kind of are now explaining that, well, there is certain things that you can't do, and there's certain things out there that control these things, and the time travel authority, like they do in Marvel, and all this. So you get the idea that okay, there is such a temporal thing, and it is policed by temporal police or whatever.
yeah.
So at least they didn't just do it willy nilly. They tried to figure out a way to cover themselves, in that whole thing.
I would love to.
But yeah, timey-wimey is where it's at because after a while you're just kind of like,
I would
what?
I would love to know what scientists would actually. I'd love to hear their theoretical review on or opinion on the old slingshot thing. So I'm going to Google that after Because a lot of Star Trek is based at least somewhat on theory, whether it's accurate or a bit
it's
off.
interesting you said, because there was an article. I don't know if I can dig it up again, but and they said that apparently, theoretically, you could actually create some kind of a time machine thing. But they said the problem with that is that, first of all, it would be so massively expensive. Number one, you wouldn't have all the right materials, because you would have to literally go out into the universe to find all the materials that you would need.
And you're too close to the sun, you get burned.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 1,000,000 to 1 that or billions of 1 to 1 that you're going to actually be able to find all the things you need to build one.
Yeah.
So they said that even if it's theoretically possible, trying to build it is like highly, highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah.
But still, theoretically, it was interesting. It's like, okay.
It is. I mentioned before, I'll stick by it. It all seems a bit, what we're seeing with this episode and the time travel, it all seems a bit far-fetched to me, because we're starting to, in my opinion, get a little bit away from what Star Trek's about, which is based on theory, and you're thinking that's a bit batshit crazy for me. But it was entertaining. It was cool to watch. So, and I don't want Gray's excuse again. They mentioned teenagers. Well, you know the situation. Yes, I know. Now, their plan doesn't go to plan quite at the start. The ship kind of levitates, hovers a little bit, and then like static electricity everywhere. And I'm thinking, this is like a bloody DeLorean here. This does not look like a ship. It just looks weird. It doesn't go to plan at first. It kind of loses power and comes back down again. And then this cracked me up, man. Of course, this has happened more than once in Prodigy. Jankum gets pissed off. He smashes the control panel. And, of course, voila, time travel complete. It works. He done it. Smash.
How many times has that been done in movies
A
and stuff?
couple of times already, man. It's hilarious.
Everything. They've all done this.
Oh. Now, the Infinity seems repaired enough to fly. We see that at one point, which is a little bit absolutely bonkers. We're thinking, a mysterious gift from this person who kind of appears to Murf and is sending the messages to the crew, but we don't really know what's going on here. We have to, before I jump ahead, mention that they do kind of pull off the old time heist thing, and the ship appears 52 years in the past, and then Gwen and her father are there at the time, because her father came to see Gwen, see if she was okay, and the ship appears, and they all have their embrace and what's going on, and they have to get Gwen out because she's phasing in and out quite a lot. Yeah. I thought they would maybe take the father with them, but no, they didn't.
I would. And actually, it was good in a way, because, again, when you do good writing and you don't know what's going to happen, you kind of like... Because I was thinking the same thing. I'm going like, are they taking the father? Not taking the father?
Maybe they couldn't, because they break the timeline, Gray, because he's supposed to be a bad guy in the future.
Yeah, and I also think that they could just about barely fix Gwen, sort of. And trying to do it twice would be probably way too much.
It would be. It would be too far-fetched,
leave it be. But even so, it still kind of looked like they were going to, and which was good, because you had the emotional tension was there because of father and daughter, and then you just kind of like, oh, that's I don't know, is he gonna go? So it was cool to not know.
Probably best that he doesn't. We don't want to ruin the timeline. So let's say this ship is mysteriously repaired enough to then start flying. We don't know how or why or by whom, and they basically leave. Go back through the wormhole back to Voyager, but Jankum cracks me up again with all the little sayings and quirks he comes away with. He said, it's all good now, the ship is, we're moving, the warp is warping. What? These sayings are just hilarious. And then this mysterious figure reveals itself a little bit more, because we end with Murf on Voyager talking to a mysterious figure that we saw before, but we actually see this mysterious figure and hear a little bit from it, and we've got theories as to who we might think it is, but we don't know much more than that, and then the kind of episode ends. What's this out of 10 for you then, Gray?
I went with 8 out of 10. Again, I thought it was a really good episode. At the end, when Murf was talking to whomever, that's when I started suspecting who it was, even though I'm not going to say right now. But that started that, and in fact, that entity knew how to speak Murphese, so that was a plus.
Murphy's, yeah, that's the thing. I've noted that somewhere.
Because he
Murphy's,
was
yeah.
understanding, what he was saying. But I thought the writing was strong. The acting's really good. This voice actors really got the parts down. They really do. And when you do that, you can believe in the story. It's actually gotten so good that I'm forgetting a lot of times that it's animation, because the
That's good.
animation is very superior compared to anything I've seen. It looks really good.
I like that form of animation, mate. I
Oh
do.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I wish maybe down the line, who knows? But if they could take that type of superior animation and make maybe more of an adult-ish Star Trek, that would be great, and
Yeah.
it would be less expensive, right?
Yeah.
And we could get the best of both worlds. It would cost less money, and we could get the Star Trek that we really would want or would like.
Best of both worlds. Cracking episodes,
Yeah,
by the way. Cracking episodes.
yeah,
Yeah, the same as you. 8 out of 10. I loved all the timey-wimey stuff, even if I didn't fully understand it. It gave me a bit of a sore head, but I love Doctor Who, so I love all
yeah,
that stuff. Give me it any time. Someone is clearly, some of the writers are clearly influenced by The Matrix and Back to the
yeah,
Future, hands down. It's so
yeah.
obvious.
You tell it's got to be.
Which is not a bad thing if you're a sci-fi writer. That's par
No,
for the
no,
course.
no, no, no.
So last but not least, the last episode in the kind of 3 episodes we're doing together. I believe after this there's a 2-parter or something, so that'll make life a bit easier. Season 2, episode 5, Observer's Paradox. It starts with a bit of a riot, I won't admit. They're getting debriefed, all the kids, and it's that classic jumping from character to character and what's going on and their reactions and stuff. And it is a bit of a riot. It was amusing. You see all the bridge officers that are talking to them, just like, especially the counsellor. He's just like, oh, my head is so sore
Yeah, I
with
know.
these kids, man.
He's pretty funny. He keeps on reacting all like, I can't take this anymore. Like,
Oh,
it's like, why am I dealing with a bunch of kids? It's bad. I have to deal with the people that are more mature, supposedly.
yeah,
Yeah.
babysitting duties. Um,
Yep.
Jamie's first officer, then Dorian Tices, I think that's who you pronounce his name,
Yeah, I think something like that.
makes a hilarious hot comment. I burst out laughing loud at this one. I had to watch it a few times.
Hmm.
When the doctor says he hasn't seen a crew this dysfunctional since, and before he can even respond, Tyrese goes, Cerritos.
Yeah. That was good. I like how they dropped that one in there, like little mic drop moment. That was really good. And you sit there go like ding, like, oh, okay.
Imagine you had a crossover between Lord X and Prodigy. That is that even possible to
That would
cross
be rough
two?
because the animation styles are quite different.
Yeah, but I mean that's the question. How possible is that? I mean, I'm guessing it's technically possible. You just got to spend enough money doing it and enough time, and minimize
You know
what you
what?
do.
To be honest, in my opinion, even though the Strange New Worlds crossed over with Lower Decks, and I gotta admit it worked a little better than I thought it was. I
I
still
love
didn't
that.
want to see that. I still didn't want to see that episode.
Oh, I
I think they
did.
should
I
have
couldn't
just.
wait. It was brilliant, mate. You kidding me? They
No,
pulled that off
I'm not
really
saying it
well.
was. Like I said, I can't. I was
Oh,
surprised that they
so
were able to
before
pull
you
off
saw
what
it,
they
you were
could.
like, "This is not going to work. I don't want to see it. It's not going to good out.
Right.
Not good out." But then when you saw it, you went, "It's actually not so bad."
Not so bad, but I still wouldn't have done it. And the same thing with this now. I think the Prodigy should be its own thing. And if you're
Yeah.
going to introduce something, you introduce, you know, whatever makes sense in that future. Like you were saying before, it might be kind of cool to have Picard show up in Prodigy, let's say, or something, or
Oh yeah,
Worf, or any of these people could do it,
yeah.
really. And that would be kind of neat. I mean, look, we know that the people handling Star Trek aren't the brightest bulbs in the closet, and many times the
Don't
fans come
hold
up with a
back,
lot of
Greg.
better
Say
ideas.
what you mean. Don't hold back.
Of course, well, we always do. So that's why, like I said, I would love to see an animated show that would solve all the problems. You would have the actors that are older that can't really do the live action stuff anymore. their voices are fine, so you would be able to get them back. You'd be able to get great animation as we've seen already, and be able to write all kinds of different kind of stories. It would be perfect. You and I would
Yeah.
love stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
And I'm
yeah.
hoping one day, maybe it'll
Fingers
happen.
crossed.
I don't know.
Fingers crossed, guys.
Yep.
It seems. I'm not really surprised by this. It seems Murf is more of the key to this than we first thought, because obviously we see. I'm talking to the character at the end, the mysterious character of the previous episode, and the crew, the kids realise this, and but the problem is, as Jankum clearly points out, none of us speak Murphy's, as we're calling it, which I found amusing. That's his official language, Murphy's. The problem is they've got to try and crack this language barrier with Murph, but they're kind of locked down. They're told to go to their quarters. It's like, kids, go to your room. You're not allowed out. And the doctor is going to basically have to be the chaperone. I'm surprised there wasn't a little quip about that as well, actually, a little one-liner from the doctor. He's literally shadowing the kids every move. Yeah, well, we should have got that. We didn't.
Yeah.
He is basically to take them to their quarters, but he needs to keep an eye on them. So each time they try to go out the room, I think Dal tries to get out the room. The doctor's right there, right immediately on the other side of the door. The kids can't catch a break. So what I found amusing here was a little bit of let's distract the doctor a little bit. And how do we distract a sentient hologram, a program? It's simple. You've just got to talk about one of the doctor's passions. So Zero has a brilliant plan to distract him by asking him about his holo novel. Remember his holo novel, Daft? He loves holo novels. He writes them, several of them. Yeah. And she starts asking Glow these questions about the holo novel, and he's like, "Oh yeah, of course I can tell you about that." And he starts waffling.
I'll show it to you. Let's go.
Let's go. And that gives the kids
every one of the 16 holodecks.
Poor Zero at the end of that, she looks burst, man. She's like, "Oh my god, I'm just going to take my protective shelf off and just let myself implode." Yeah, the kids manage to sneak out. Of course they do. And Jankum, being the little genius that he is, he alters the comm badge because at this stage, well, actually, how far back does it go? Actually, probably TNG. The comm badge does double as a universal translator as well.
Right.
Whereas I think back in TOS time, it was the actual separate communicator. Yeah. So this is an all-in-one device at this stage. He alters it so that they can understand Murph. But it backfires a little bit because he starts saying random words in English like mushroom and whatever else.
Right, yeah. It works but doesn't really work entirely.
It's English, but
it freaks Murph out too because he's going like,
yeah, help, this is not what I'm trying to say.
Poor little guy.
And he runs away. So at this stage, Rock is not getting involved because Rock was on Rock Talk. She was on the ship on Voyager the whole time, so she's not want to get into trouble. She behaves herself. Right. She's basically, because she works with Cetacean Ops with the Doctor and all that, she's basically in Cetacean Ops by the tank where the whale is, and cleaning it this whole time. She's like, no, and she sees the guy sneaking past in the background. She's like, I'm not getting involved in this stuff.
I'm not doing it. I'm not getting involved. No.
And then
I thought that was all brilliant because typically you would have thought like, okay, so all the kids are going to get together because that's what they do. But they purposely made it so that she was very reluctant because she was afraid of her career and Starfleet, and they did it really well. So it really played off each other excellently.
That's how I would do it. That's how I would do it. I wouldn't want to lose my potential job, you know. But as she's cleaning the tank and she's saying, I'm not getting involved. The whale that's in there is called Jillian, and of course they've got to. I can maybe buy this. By that time in the future, they've worked out a way to translate what whale, because whales are intelligent animals. That's what some people might not realize or forget. They are super intelligent animals, and maybe not the same level as intelligence as humans, but you don't have to be as intelligent as a human to have a conversation with someone. The translator basically can talk for the whale. And we find out it's Jillian. And the whale's like, do you want to basically get it off your chest? What's wrong? Tell me. And that's when Rock turns around and just goes, Jillian, it's a long story, best not. And is this scene that is happening, I'm thinking it's like a soap opera, one of these soap opera TV shows. Like, just like, what's going on? Like, the two girls having a bit of a gossip and what's actually happened. And of course, the whale being there is great because what is that alluding to? What's that a nod to, Gray?
Star Trek 4.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. That was.
Or remember, they mentioned. I forgot. I read an article where they mentioned something in passing about the dolphins, and that supposedly the dolphins that you see on lower decks were supposedly always on the starship, going all the way back or something. But getting it again, they couldn't do it because of money. And stuff like that. So finally you saw the dolphins on lower decks, which was cool. And I think this is just another expansion on that. So I saw the whales in Star Trek 4, and now we have the whales on the ship and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, yeah, okay.
The dolphins on lower decks cracked me up. Like, genuinely, I had tears in my eyes at some point. It's literally, I think at one point Boimler gets in the water and they're like, dude, come on, get your shoes off, man. This is our home,
Yeah, exactly.
It just cracked me up.
Spoiling the water.
It's the thing is, right, the reason they're on there is because they are intelligent forms of life, and they make the comment that they're great navigators. And as soon as I hear this, I'm like, wait a minute, man, please don't say they're bloody piloting the starship. No, it's too far. I don't even know why they're there. I don't know what they actually do, man. The dolphins and the whales, I have no clue. It seems a bit cruel, actually. It's a bit like a zoo, keeping a shark or something, or a great white shark or whatever, locked up.
Well, I think because this whale is not like our whales, it's a more intelligent whale. You would think that because of being more intelligent, there's certain things that it doesn't bother it.
Yeah.
Whereas the less intelligent it would.
How's it more intense?
That tank is humongous, so the thing is like, he can move around. I mean,
how do you know that the whale's more intelligent?
Well, I mean, I'm extrapolating because I figure by hundreds of years from now, you don't know. I mean, they're constantly working right now trying to figure out the whale and dolphin language.
Sure.
And so it's not really far fetched that hundreds of years from now they'll crack it and they can hey, look! The gorillas talking sign language. They're actually talking.
See, the whale, as I mentioned before, whales and dolphins are real intelligent because you see dolphins on a regular basis following ships along, and they want to be playful and interact, and they'll come up to divers and basically want their noses rubbed and things. And whales, there's been even stories of whales that someone that's been drowning, a whale has like lifted this person up to the water kind of thing, to the surface of the water. Really super. And like I've seen this on the YouTube clips I watch of dolphins and whales that got stuck in some netting or something, which don't get me started in that one. And you'll see a person come along. I saw a person come along and cut away some of the netting on the side of a whale that was keeping it trapped. And basically it flew, Star Trek in the brain. It swam away afterwards, but what it done is it kind of done a little, its little jump up in the water and it splashes down. That was almost a kind of thank you for helping me out. It came towards the ship for help. It actually asked for help.
There's been creatures, even a shark. I saw a whole video where a shark had a big old hook stuck in his mouth, and he swam over to a diver, not to eat him, or anything, but he kept swimming to the diver and he kept lifting the head, showing where the hook is. And he would do it over and over and over again until the diver started going like, this is really odd. So he actually, I got to give the diver credit. He goes right up to the shark, right?
That takes
and pulls
balls.
the hook out of its mouth.
That takes balls.
And the shark was kind of like, cool, man, thanks, and then swam off. I was like, whoa.
You didn't get munched? A lot of sharks won't try and eat you, to be fair.
Most sharks, except for great whites, don't really want to munch on humans.
Stay away from sharks that are quite a bit bigger than you. That's probably my best advice.
That's always a good idea.
But that was an interesting tangent, but a cool one because I'm super impressed with these kind of animals. So yeah, Star Trek 4, resemblance of Star Trek 4, which is one of my favourite Star Trek movies. It never gets enough time and attention. I generally love it because it's the most mischievous one. It's the funniest Star Trek movie, I think, of the old guard.
That was a time travel story.
And it's a time travel story, so I mean, I love that movie, I do. Now,
transparent aluminum.
Don't start reading
Remember
that.
that?
Hello, computer.
Computer.
At this stage, Janeway, and as well as us, thinks that Chakotay could be the mysterious entity. As a message comes through from Admiral Jellicoe that I touched on the last review episode we done.
We love him.
I don't like that guy. I think I've said that. None of us like. He was a bit of an arse in TNG, and he's a bit of an arse here still. And he's a full admiral, so he can tell Janeway what to do. It's his role to be an asshole. He tells Janeway you've got to close that wormhole because it's dangerous, which I get. You know, it's got to be done. But Janeway's obviously hesitant, and she's got to listen to what her superiors are saying. As soon as she becomes an admiral, she can basically tell him where to go. It's grey notes here. Someone had to spoil the fun. It's always bloody Jellicoe, isn't it?
Exactly.
He was the guy that was involved in the Five Lights episode with Picard on Cardassia when he gets captured. Remember that he takes over. He takes charge of the Enterprise D for a while, and everyone feckin' hates him on that ship. Like, so glad when it's done. So yeah, she's hesitant. Janeway, we have to close this down. Okay, right. And then what I found absolutely brilliant here, this was genius, it really was. They get Gillian, remember Gillian the Whale, what a name,
right?
To help translate for Murf, right? As Murf kinda jumps in the water, because they're talking about how whales sound differently underwater as if you were to record it and maybe play the noise above water.
Right.
And it's the same maybe with Murf. They think that's the case with Murf. So let's stick Murf in the water. And then Murf jumps in the water and like turns into some bloody like sea dragon creature thing, and like these limbs start coming out and stuff.
Like a mermaid.
Like a mermaid. That's a good it's a good example. And but he seems happy. He's like swimming about and making his noises and stuff. And how does he not know he's at home in water? That's an instinctual thing.
Well, they're slowly, ever so slowly, revealing what Murph's about, because we don't know anything about him. We only know a little bit more now. You know, but but the whole thing I thought was brilliant. I thought the writing was great at this point, because I never really thought about this. And it makes some sense, because Murph communicates mostly with noises and stuff. I mean, even though nobody understands him.
But he can understand everyone else. You get that?
Right. Well, because he's probably more intelligent in that way, but he can't express it, or he is expressing it, but they're not getting it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really great, because that's how the whales communicate. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's a cool one.
Yeah.
So then you see them kind of talking more or less, and then Jillian talks to Rock and says, I think I can understand him, and then they kind of went from there. But I thought it was great.
It was good writing, that. It was good. I liked that. Yeah. You mentioned that as well, actually. Jillian says, I think he's saying, and it reads out some letters, N, D, M, E, F. I'm like, what is that? And they kind of rearrange it, and then there's some coordinates as well, or some numbers that are given as well. And there's Jankum again. As the letters come through, Jankum was like, listen, this is no time for Klingon opera. What?
That's right.
Well, I didn't get that, but it's amusing.
He's definitely the second banana, and especially in this episode, he just comes up with all this stuff.
Oh, it was Jankum is my VIP of the series so far, to be honest with you. They struggle to make any sense of it because it is just jumbled letters. To be fair, I do like the show of togetherness from the Voyager bridge crew. As they're about to close the wormhole grate, they basically all of them stand up, and I thought there was going to be not mutiny, but I thought there was going to be a data moment where they say to hell with our orders. I thought that's what was coming, but they are all basically like, listen, Admiral, we're with you, whatever you want to do. And I thought she was going to go, right, screw it, we're not going to close it. We have a little kind of nod to Voyager music as this is happening. but they do close the wormhole.
Yeah. I was a little surprised
Yeah.
at that one, so I was like, oh, okay.
I didn't see that coming, man. I didn't see that coming. They close it with this was a bit weird, but I kind of get it. They launch a torpedo towards the wormhole, and just before it gets to the wormhole, they then use their phasers, the ship's phasers, to detonate it, so that the effect of the explosion closes the wormhole. Why? You realize, writers, that torpedoes are designed to detonate and explode when they hit their target. Why did you have to explode it with a phaser?
I think the reason is because since they were firing it at a wormhole, it's not going to hit the target. It's just going to get sucked in.
Yeah, but you can program a torpedo when to explode.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. I mean, it looked cool though, so that was a good reason.
It did. It doesn't break it. Yeah.
I'll tell you, the animation on the torpedo and the phaser looked real good.
Oh yeah.
It really did.
Any excuse for some pew pew? You can give us some pew pew, please. They close it, and Jamie's kind of down and distraught. Of course, she is. We see a model. She walks into her personal quarters, and we see some memorabilia. We see the original Voyager model sitting on our mantelpiece. And you missed this, Gray, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't see that at all, man.
God, it's a good thing we both watched this, man. It's a good thing, otherwise we'd miss stuff. We always tell each other things that we've missed. I only watch it the once through. I should watch it the twice through, but if I did, I would be here for a long time. Nice little touch.
I got both of us watching it.
yeah, 2 is better than 1 always. Now, the close from Murf was there was a frequency that I never seen this coming. This was genius. Murf to the rescue again. He, after giving the letter through, gives some numbers through, and they're like, it's too short to be coordinates, so it can't be that. It's Gwen that actually is the smart cookie and goes, right, that's the frequency for the device I've got on my arm, which the doctor gives her to temporarily stabilize her so she stays in the time period. So she's like, I need to change it to this frequency, right? I was like, okay, that's smart. So she changes it to that frequency. Cool idea, isn't it?
Yep.
I like that.
And when she dialed it in and hit it, then all of a sudden, like, poof.
She's gone.
Which is supposed to be what would happen, and that's what she suspected.
Yeah.
So I thought that whole angle was great. That was something new that I hadn't seen before. And I got to give credit to the writers, man. They're popping up with some stuff that's really cool, which is what Star Trek's about.
Keep the good writing up.
So, yeah, that was pretty neat. I like what you said next, though, and what you go
ahead and say. She disappears, and we think she's going to go to where this person is, this mysterious person that's giving them clues and helping them repair ships and whatnot. And it goes all Space Odyssey acid trip on us, man. She's going flying through space, and she's like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, as if she's been on acid. Like, what the hell is this all about? And then she stops.
The mushrooms again.
Hey, stamets, man. God damn it, blame this guy. Mushroom trip again. And we see the spiral from earlier on that Murf made. Because Murf was stealing food off of people's tables. And then he was going to making a little spiral behind them.
By the way, I have to make a note because I noticed that you may not have caught on to it, but where else did you see that spiral?
Did he not touch on it? It's a thing on the stone that Chakotay gave to Jamie. Yeah,
Chakotay gave her.
It's part of his heritage. He's American Indian heritage, isn't it? So.
Right. And you see the spiral on the stone, which I thought was pretty cool too. So that was like a clue, to this whole thing and a connection. So that was kind of neat how they did that. So I like that too. It was good.
Gwen sees that from a distance when she comes out of her acid trip. Like, she's hovering in space. I'm like, okay. She sees a spiral galaxy in front of her. And she's like, I've seen that before. She's seen that before. And then she basically comes back to where the guys are in Cetacean Ops. She's like, listen, it's Chakotay. Chakotay's given me the messages. I think I know how to find them. Now, great. I think this is a bit... This is what I don't get, right? So Chakotay and Adric, they get in the protostar, they go towards the wormhole, and then what's supposed to happen is you go through the wormhole and you come out the other side. right?
Right,
But
you're going to come out the other side at a different time.
but they don't. They don't come out the wormhole at all. That's what I was expecting to happen. They seem to,
Well, that we know of.
what we know of, yeah,
Yeah.
but they seem to be. We don't know where they are, basically, right? We don't know if they're
Right.
stuck in that wormhole somehow, because it seems like Chakotay has been converted into some higher being that can mysteriously send messages through time and space, and also hover and repair ships remotely.
Right.
That was a bit far-fetched and a bit bloody bonkers, man. You have to be a
Well,
god to do that.
I think for now, temporarily,
Until we
it's a
know,
far-fetched
until we know.
thing. Right. Now, if the writing doesn't support it in some somewhat logical way, I'll be pretty disappointed.
Yeah,
But since the writing has been so strong, I'm guessing that eventually we'll find
tell
out,
you.
and then maybe it'll all make sense, or at least more sense than it does now.
Hopefully.
So I'm willing to give them a pass for now until we see how it develops, because I believe the same thing as you. If it's Chakotay, how the hell is he doing all this stuff? Or what happened to him?
Well,
So they have to come up with a good explanation.
I can only give my opinion based on what I've seen so far, but true, like
Right,
the ultimate
right.
opinion won't be until then, until we actually know what's going on. Gray, what did you give this out of 10 and why?
I gave it a 9 out of 10, and the reason I went with it is because I just thought the creativeness of the writing was really good in this episode. There may have been little things here and there that could have been better, but generally speaking, the writing made up for it because they came up with some really novel stuff that I kind of hadn't seen coming.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you can do stuff where you're gonna fool me or fool you, because we've seen enough of this stuff, then we kind of like, whoa, okay, now we're. Because I mean, when you do that to somebody like us, especially that we're so much into Trek, then you really get excited and you want to see the next episode and the next episode and the next
Especially
episode.
you.
Because right, but because the writing is strong. So when the writing's strong, you can't wait.
Yeah.
When the writing's not strong, it's kind of like, if I see it, I see it. If I don't, I don't.
That's a fair shout.
You know.
That's a fair shout.
Yeah. So I just kind of like I probably would have gone 8 out of 10, but because the creativeness was really, really good in this episode, I kind of bumped it up. So.
Well, I did as well, actually. So sometimes we do this as we read back notes and we discuss it, and you realise you break it down and you absorb it more. So I had originally had it as a 7.5 out of 10, but no, it is more of an 8 out of 10 for me. Let's say a bit nuts this episode in a good way, but I really liked the evolution of Murf, because I want to find out properly what he's all about. And I also love the togetherness of not only the kids, but of the Voyager bridge crew. That's important to get through these episodes and these storylines together by sticking together, So, really enjoyed that. What we'll say, we'll be back next time for, I think it's like a 2 or 3 part special in one go. So we'll cover that in one go next time. But until the next time, Gray, say goodbye to the people for me, please, mate.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
See you later, guys. Take it easy. Bye-bye.